and welcome to Barely Filtered. I'm just going to give you guys what you're all wondering, and that is what shit show is Aurora dating in currently this week? Well, actually, so I'm still dating the guy that we were talking about last week. And by dating, I mean like I have seen him. We went on 4 dates in 1 week. And you're probably like, when did you have time for that? I really did not have time for it. I was sick for the majority of the time because I was just cramming it in during like a lunch date when my kids were at school, like in between work. And then I don't know why I felt like an urgency to say yes to him every single time he asked me out, but I just did. Anyway, so this is a guy who he's not going to listen to this. And he did say that I could talk about him anonymously. So we'll just go with that. So he lost his wife 4 years ago and he has a child. And when I went to his house, there's still pictures of his ex, or not. It's not an ex if it's somebody that passed away. So he refers to her as his wife. So that caused me to pause because obviously he's ready to date. He's dated since before me, since she's passed. This is somebody who's highly successful, very smart, seems very emotionally intelligent. He's goes to therapy. You know, these are all things that you definitely want to make sure somebody who has had any kind of trauma like that is in therapy and has processed emotions. Although I do think there's a component of time to grief, especially, that cannot be rushed. And I don't know this from personal experience because, knock on wood, I have actually never lost anybody close to me. So I feel like I shouldn't even say that out loud because then, I don't know. Anyway, so this is an interesting thing that I'm navigating because, you know, I like him and he did not choose to end his marriage. They had a very good marriage and he was really in love with her and she was his person and she was taken away too soon and he was devastated. But his thing is that he thinks that he's actually now more prepared to love a partner and to be a good partner because he knows how finite all relationships are. For me, obviously, walking into this, the questions that I have are like, well, how could I ever live up to somebody who is not around anymore? And how wouldn't I always just be wondering if you would prefer to be with her? Because wouldn't you prefer to be with her? Even though she's not an option, you don't want to be like anybody's second option. So I don't know. And I talked about this with him openly. I think that you can have competing emotions at the same time. And I think they can both be valid and both be true. And I think that the key to navigating this kind of space is just really being aware of what you're feeling when emotions do come up and kind of working through them. I think a lot of it has to do with ego. Like you walk into somebody's house and then there's like pictures of this person everywhere. It's like, do I have any right to feel a certain way about it? Or is that just my ego being nervous that my relationship would somehow be compared to that relationship? Which ultimately all relationships are so different. It's not like you can compare one marriage to another marriage. I read somewhere, I think Rumi said this. It was like, I think I said it on my last episode where it was like, the easiest way to ruin something special is by comparing it to something else. And I think it's so true, especially with relationships, because your bond with somebody is so specific, is so special, is so different. It can never be compared to another relationship or another friendship. But I think there is something interesting about a relationship where one partner has been taken away too soon. You know, they passed away. And now, is that person that was left behind really ever able to move on without idolizing or thinking about what could have been with the person that they lost? I don't know. But It definitely got my wheels turning, I'll tell you that. Okay, now on a little bit of a lighter note, he took me on a date that was like the cutest thing in the entire world, but then ended kind of in disaster. And let me tell you why. So we had talked about, this trend on Instagram where you both have a canvas and you're painting each other, and then at the end you reveal basically how you see that person, which is mean because it's definitely not like how you actually see them, but like how much skill do you have? So we did this. He was like, meet me at this hotel. We're going to go to dinner here after, but I have something planned for us for before. And I felt like I was on like The Bachelor because it was such a well curated experience. I get there. He has this like canvas bag filled with all painting supplies with like a little easel set up for both of us. And this is in Santa Monica. So he's like, we're going to walk to the beach. So meanwhile, I have on these like 3-inch Python Paris, Texas, amazing boots, and I'm walking in the sand. And if you've ever been to Santa Monica, it's not like the sand is like a short distance from the water. There's like a full mile before you get there. So here I am in the sand walking with these Python boots, about to, start my art journey career with him. And then we get to this little picnic area that he had set up by the hotel, the Georgian Hotel. If you guys are in town, they actually do this for you, where they set up an umbrella with little charcuterie and a little picnic set up. And so we had our charcuterie, we had some wine, and we had some, and meanwhile, the wine is important because you guys know I don't really drink, and this is why. So I'm like still kind of sick at this point. I'm like still getting over this sickness. I feel like I've been sort of sick for like 2 weeks. But I was on Sudafed when I got there. And then I forgot that I was on Sudafed. I had a glass of wine and I started to feel like, it's just not the feeling. I don't know, like just kind of tired, but also kind of like you're on drugs. Like there's a reason why you have to get the Sudafed behind the pharmacy counter and they're not just giving it away. Anyway. So we painted the pictures. Surprisingly, like they were both pretty good. I thought mine was great. I have to show you this if we can like zoom into it somehow. I'll try to patch it into here. But I look exactly like Kim Richards from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So this Kyle Richards blonde sister, that's who he painted. But he meant to paint me. Somehow he painted her. I don't know if she ever listens to this. I have a painting of you that you might like. And anyway, so it was really cute. Then we went to dinner, and it's kind of this little speakeasy hidden restaurant in the back of the hotel. We had an amazing dinner. It was really fun. Then he disappears. So the check came, he paid the check, and then he gets up and he disappears. And I'm sitting there for like 15 minutes. Mind you, this is our 4th date. We have not had sex, obviously, because it's our 4th date and I'm not that kind of a woman. And he disappears from the table. And I don't know if it was the Sudafed or the glass of wine or what, but I start to get pretty pissed. I think I might have some kind of rage problems because I was just annoyed, like, to be honest. And also my au pair at home is texting me the whole time. Both my kids were having tantrums. Everybody wasn't really feeling that well. They were having tantrums. They wanted me to come home. The babysitter's texting me. I don't know where the F he went. I'm like kind of annoyed because I honestly wanted to go home. Like I was done. I think I was having a little bit of a tantrum. Anyway, so he disappears. Then this guy walks by, drops a card on the table. And I look at it. It's a room key, but there's no like room number on the card. And I'm like, oh my God, he got a room at this hotel. I keep sitting there. I'm texting him. I'm like, you good? What's going on? Where are you? He's not writing me back. And then the guy walks by again after like 5 minutes. And meanwhile, for me, this felt like it took place over a half hour, according to the guy that I'm dating or was dating. We'll see. He says it was like a 12-minute scenario, like time frame. Anyway, the guy walks by again and says, ma'am, please follow me. I have somewhere to take you. Mind you, this is just this random dude asking me to follow him in an elevator up to a hotel room. And I do it, of course. So I follow him up. He opens the door. I walk in and my friend, we're gonna call him Joe because it's just weird. My friend is sitting there with his phone on, recording my reaction to this surprise of a hotel room for us on our 4th date. Mind, I walk in, I can't hide it. I'm like, what? You left me. I'm like, you left me at the table. He's like, I thought you'd be surprised. I was like, you don't surprise somebody with a hotel room on a 4th date. That is so presumptuous. Why do you think that I want a hotel room with you right now? And then I was like, I have to go to the bathroom. I went and I peed and I came back and I was like, at first I was embarrassed because he filmed my reaction because I was grumpy as fuck. And I was pissed. I felt cornered. Like, of course, just because we have a hotel room doesn't mean like I'm obligated to have sex with him. But I do feel like when you're getting around the like 4th, 5th, whatever date, I felt like that there was pressure there because he got this hotel room, which made me not want to have sex with him even more. So I ended up sitting down. I got over it because I was like, all right, nobody wants to be like the grumpy, annoyed girl, but I can play that pretty well sometimes. So basically I was just like, I don't really want to be here, to be honest. I had a great time with you on the date. We had so much fun. My babysitter is harassing. I blamed it on the babysitter and the Sudafed. That's what I did. We watched like a half hour of TV. I did not have sex with him because I was annoyed. I couldn't even breathe out of my nose. It just wasn't the time. It wasn't the time. It wasn't the place. And he's like, oh, you really don't like surprises, do you? And I was like, I don't know that I don't like surprises. Like, I don't like this surprise feels forward. And I felt a little trapped. I don't know if that's just me or the question also in my head is like, okay, if this was somebody that you really liked and really wanted to have sex with, would you have been pissed or would you have been happy? I'm a grumpy, sick person. So I feel like I probably would have been not happy anyway, because I want it to be perfect the first time. And I don't want to be like, half on Sudafed, like snotting, and it was, yeah. So anyway, that's where I'm at with my recent dating life. He's a really nice guy. It's a hard thing to navigate with the whole fact that he's a widower, I guess is what you call a guy who's lost his wife. So sweet, so thoughtful. He really did try to surprise me. He really thought I'd be surprised and happy. I was surprised. I was not happy. So he failed, but I think it's the thought that counts. A for effort, and I will give him another shot. Thank you so much for coming on Barely Filtered. How are you? I hear you're pregnant, although you can't really tell from this angle.
Oh my God, I'm flattered. Thank you. I just scheduled my induction today. So I'm very pregnant, but I'm 3 weeks away. So now I'm counting down the days.
Oh, wow. So are you getting induced like a week after your due date or on your due date?
Before my due date.
Oh, a week before. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's not.
I actually when I got induced, when I was on my way to the hospital, I naturally went into labor. And supposedly that's something that can happen because like your brain knows that you're about to, I don't know. Our bodies are very wise.
I'm fine with that. And like anytime it wants to happen, I'm like, come on, girl, because I don't feel my best being pregnant. And so that's why I had to schedule it, because I was like, I can't be like in this unknown moment. Like I need to know. But now I think that I scheduled it. My body feels so much more relaxed that I could so see like my water just breaking, because it just, your body knows like, but the way that I have decided bodies are absolutely incredible throughout pregnancy. Like it's changed the way I view everything. So I'm with you. Bodies are so wise.
100%. And I feel like this lesson about letting go of the control, you are just beginning that journey. Because let me tell you, I have a 4 and a 6-year-old and I am like still in PTSD mode from getting them out the door this morning. But I'm sure you're going to run a really tight ship and everything's going to be perfect for you.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that's exactly what's going to not happen even remotely. But nonetheless, I am excited about whatever happens.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so exciting. So tell me, because I'm just like nosy and curious, I know you met your husband on a blind date, but before that you were married, correct?
Yes. So I met my boyfriend on a blind date. We're not married yet, but I
Oh,
am
okay.
divorced.
I wasn't married when I had my first baby. No judgment.
Oh, I know. I did my research on you. I was like, it's all we're go
Yeah,
divorces.
this is a no judgment zone. Yeah.
So I was married for 4 years and then got divorced a year ago, a little over a year ago. Took him a while to sign the paperwork. So I don't know if we're going off the paperwork date or if we're going off the day that it was signed there, but anyways, a little over a year ago, I got divorced.
Same.
And then I went on like a couple dates, but then I was set up on a blind date. And now fast forward, that's my baby daddy. His name's Harrison. He is, I call him the best thing that ever happened to me. I thought when I got divorced, okay, like I have 5 years, 6 years until I even start a family, but I always wanted a family. And then I met him and fast forward, really fast forward, people are like, did she get pregnant by accident? And I'm like, no, we were trying. So everything kind of flip-flopped and the accelerator was pressed down. And so here I am.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like there's so many rules about the timing of things, when you should have sex, when you should kiss somebody, when you should, move on after a death, after a divorce. And the more I've been dating, the more I realize there's just no hard and fast rule that works for everybody. It's so different.
So you had the breakup episode, but you were divorced, dating, and then broke up. And now are you dating somebody right now?
I am dating somebody right now, but like it's brand new. So the thing is, I'm not a great casual dater. So if I'm on like a third date with somebody, I'm not dating other people. Like to me, they're my boyfriend. They might have a problem with that. I'm not asking them if they're dating other people, but I don't know. I think it's my ADHD. Like I just can't date multiple people at once. So right now I am dating somebody. He might not think he's dating me, But I actually did ask him this morning. I was like, what's your list of icks? Because I watched your Mean Girls podcast and you were like, you guys had the funniest video of some guy saying that his biggest ick is when a girl's wearing heels and she rolls her ankle. And I'm like, well, first of all, that can't be an ick because that's not on purpose, but it is so ick at the same time.
It's so ick. Like imagine that, like you didn't mean to. And like, we've all done it. But once you see it happen, you're just like, I can't get over that. Like, I can't get over that.
No, because like the girl's really trying to look good, and then she just fails so hard.
Okay, what did he say? What are his biggest icks?
Okay, that was what I wanted to read because I thought they were absolutely absurd, and you have to tell me what you think about these. Sheer pantyhose, no style in any facet of life, rude to servers. Not good with kids, excessive body hair, especially in weird or very handleable places like toes, arms, and neck. Dumb, just a receiver in bed, boring in bed generally. Little dogs as dolls, granny panties, which I kind of have an issue with. If your makeup makes you look like a girl who watched 500 hours of contouring videos, Michael Kors anything. Picky eaters, high maintenance travelers, BO. Like he went on and on. This guy.
Well, did he text this to you?
Yes, but he's one of those people which I appreciate. He writes paragraphs of things, and I'm like, I love that. But you got to be that kind of a texter.
No, I'm going to ask you about the texting in a second. But I'm impressed with him because one that stuck out to me, which I would love to add to my ick list, is rude to wait staff.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him. Good for him for adding that. Don't know how he knows about the Michael Kors thing. That's hilarious. But the wait staff one I love. This is a thought-provoking guy. I feel like he's not boring to date.
No, he's not boring to date at all. But I feel like I'm taking the show away. I'm supposed to be interviewing you right now. Sorry, this is now about me.
I'm really bad about that. Sorry.
No, this is fine. Okay, so we need to back up because there's so many questions. So you got divorced, and I totally get it. When I separated from my husband, it was like, it takes forever to actually sign the paperwork. So then when people are like, oh, when did you get divorced? And you're like, oh, yesterday. And I'm like about to give birth. The timing doesn't really work like that. But you got divorced. How many people did you date before this successful matchmaking? And who was your matchmaker?
My matchmaker, God, how do you ever repay a matchmaker? She was a mutual friend. Someone that I knew like very casually, but he knows, I don't know if she's one of his investors or she's like a VC girl. But she is like the life of the party. Like she's very fun. And so I wouldn't trust anybody to set me up on a blind date, but her specifically I would because I loved her. And so she's like, listen, I got a guy for you. And I was like, okay, I'm so down. How many people I dated before that? I don't know. 4 or 5, maybe 3 or 4. I could think of 2 right now.
Because you weren't single for very long, right?
I wasn't single for very long, and I had a really hard time going on dates. Like I missed the first date with baby daddy boy. Like I wasn't in the right headspace yet. So I ditched that date, but then we circled back like a month later and I was in the right headspace. So yeah, it was tricky. I didn't know where life was going to take me, and then it really took me.
Wow. And at that time do you still do 2 podcasts at once?
Yep, I do. That was
You still do the Mean Girls podcast and Just Alex, that you have your husband on your boyfriend on sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Harrison.
Yeah. The numbers on that are a lot better when he is on. So
I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I actually wanted to tell you that I think you picked an amazing one, because one of the things he talked about was how he just loves his Apple Watch. In the episode I was listening to, he loves his Apple Watch because he doesn't want to flex like that he can afford a Rolex, which I think is so hot. And it's so true about, actually, 2 guys ago that I dated, his whole identity was his watch. And he would wear a watch, I'm not kidding you, it was worth like $250,000. Somebody's going to cut your wrist off. Why?
Well, but that's the thing. Why? And like, we know why. It's because it's their thing, right? And it's like, it's a walking price tag, which is fine for some occasions, but like, not coffee on a Saturday. Like, we got it, buddy. You do well.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I know it is a bigger conversation though, because sometimes I feel that way about, like, I have a few Chanel bags, and sometimes I feel like a douche when I wear them, because I'm like, why am I wearing this? Like, just so that everybody knows I spent $10,000 on a fucking bag.
I tell you what, it broke. Okay, when we went on the date, I'm so guilty of this. I remember thinking, an Apple Watch? Like, I was like, oh my God. I was like,
is that your ick?
Like, I was like, fuck. Like, I really like him. But like, the one thing I can't get over is that he's wearing this Apple Watch. And then like the next day he made a joke about it. And he was like, oh my God, I know this Apple Watch is such a turnoff, but it's like so my thing. And I was like, okay, at least we don't.
He acknowledges
think it's
it.
Cool.
That's it. That's all you
That's
need.
all I needed. It was all I needed. And I'm the same way. Like, I love a designer bag. Now I'm asking myself, well, why?
I know.
But I still do. Like, guilty
Sometimes we
charge.
don't want to say.
Oh, girl, I love it. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's hard to be cool all the time. Sometimes we just can accept like some parts of us that are not that chill.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't even want to be that chill. I'm like, okay, what I'm the only thing, you don't want to buy clothes when you're pregnant, but you do kind of want to get a bag. And so I'm like, what's my fall bag going to be? And I'm with you.
100%. Yeah, I think that's also one of the things I edited this time around with my dating. I'm like, I'm not going to pretend to be the cool girl anymore. Like, I actually like nice things. I want gifts, and I don't like football. So fuck off.
And I don't like football. Number one, when we like got the date of like being induced, Harrison was like, there's a really big game that day. And I just like looked at him, and he was like, which is like not a big deal in comparison to the game.
Yeah.
But what was I going to ask you? Oh, okay. So if you're like, when you go on dates, are you just like officially unapologetically yourself now, and you just say all these unfiltered things, and like they can take it or leave it?
Sort of. I think I'm getting better at that. The last guy I did go on a date with, who I'm now on date like 4 with, he also showed up with an Apple Watch the first date and shoes that like made a clicky noise, which is an ick for me.
Those dress shoes?
Yeah. Like they were pretty casual, but they had a dress shoe sole, which I don't appreciate. The first date.
I don't even understand. I
don't know why.
Is it like a penny loafer?
They reminded me of like Great Gatsby shoes, kind of.
Got it.
Kind of like a penny loafer. But I think they were nice shoes. He had Jacquemus sunglasses on. I really hope he doesn't listen to this. But to me, they looked like sunglasses that are more for a female. And these are things that I'm kind of grappling with, like, if all the other boxes are checked, can you just like move past the icks? Did you have any icks other than the Apple Watch?
No, only the Apple Watch. And everything else I was like obsessed with. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was no ick happening at all. And I don't know. I don't know. I tell you all the time, I'm always like, what the fuck, universe? Like, I just got that like lucky that fast. I don't know.
Yeah. And your marriage, do you feel like you knew from the start the things that ended up being like the demise of it in the end?
What a great question that no one has asked me, that maybe I haven't even asked myself. Did I see it coming? Okay, there were things that, yeah, they got more inflated over time, I guess you could say. And I had to learn about myself too. Like, I had to learn I'm really attracted to ambition. I had to learn a lot of things about myself and become okay with those. But we were both, born and raised in Oklahoma. And then by the time, we had lived in LA and then we had lived in New York, we were like a long, long ways away from home, different people. And I think there were things at the beginning that could have gone one way or the other, and they ended up going one way. But if I was a betting person at the beginning, no, I wouldn't have thought things would have turned out the way they did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I totally relate to that, where things kind of just got inflated. And I feel like that is one of the rules that I try to tell myself now as well, that those like little red flags always end up coming up in the end in some bigger way. Usually things don't go away. They only reveal themselves further.
I think that statement is entirely accurate unless you become like okay with complacency, which is like my biggest fear, right? Is like staying the same, I guess. And so, yeah, the red flags, like, and they weren't, and I don't know if you had this, but they weren't red flags like, I don't know, use some like massive like he didn't even drink. So
like he was in debt and he said he was going to pay it off, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't in debt.
Yeah.
He wasn't in debt at all. And so hell, he left me a little in debt. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't. But it's like, if there was a thing like that where you point to the chart and you say, okay, he did this, therefore that equals divorce. It was just like a mismatch of people. I don't know if you had the same thing, but I think it makes it harder to make the call.
I think sometimes the person you choose is not the person you want in the end, because you changed and they didn't, or maybe they changed and you didn't. It's so hard. It's so hard to expect that you're both going to grow and change in a way that remains compatible.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I found, did you find divorce to be like a tornado and then one day you were just like out of it, like it had stopped spinning?
It's so odd because, like grief, which I would never compare divorce to somebody dying, but I think it's similar in ways that it comes in waves. And what I realized recently is one of the things I really miss about being in a relationship and being married is that I used to cook all the time. And now I'm like, oh, I don't cook anymore because I don't have another adult to cook for on a regular basis. And I think you just slowly learn over time, like those gaps that being in a committed relationship kind of affords you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Do you want a significant other?
I do. And then I also think as we get older, we get so stuck in our ways that a lot of my life and the way I run it, to anybody looking in, would be like, she's leaving no room for anybody to enter. Like my kids sleep with me. I'm trying to put my foot down on that because energetically, I want my life to be open to having a partner, because I do want one. I don't want to die alone. But in a lot of ways, I have so much responsibility with work and kids and everything that then having a partner is like a responsibility, right? I don't know. You tell me, do you feel like your partner is another responsibility in some ways? He does, don't let him hear this.
No, ultimately, not a responsibility at all. I feel like he pulls me actually along, but it's tough because I've been pregnant, so I'm probably more of the responsibility for him right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. It comes in waves, totally. And you will be for a while.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be postpartum, which is even more of a vulnerable state, which is beautiful, and you're going to love it.
I don't know. I'm like, no, we'll just come with that what may. But I do see what you're saying of it is an added responsibility. I kind of added everything at once though, and I was ready for that. I didn't not want to be single. I didn't get divorced to be single by any means. I liked being in a relationship. I got divorced because it wasn't right. I wasn't in the right relationship for me long term. And I wasn't in the relationship where I wanted to start a family. And so I think I just added the family component with the relationship component kind of at the same time. But I don't mind like when the ship steadies, I kind of like to rock it. So it was just one of those things where I had to trust my gut and say like this is what I want and it's here right now, so take it or leave it. And I took it and I'm really happy I did, and it's made me like I feel sometimes, although I'm like sick being pregnant, I feel like I got an overwhelming like amount of joy that I sometimes I feel like I didn't deserve. I don't know. I have this weird thing with it.
I remember feeling that when I was pregnant. I don't think that's your rational mind thinking, because I remember having a similar thought of being like, everything feels too good to be true. Like something's going to happen. It's like the other shoe's going to drop. What's going to happen, because I don't deserve all of this at once.
Right. And you're like so excited and happy. And you're just like, no, because I was supposed to get divorced and be sad for so long. And then like I ended up being happy like 6 months later. Like what?
Yeah. What the hell?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Own
Thank
it.
you.
Own it. No, that's inspiring. That's so inspiring, because if you don't have to be miserable, like I really don't think there's a whole lot of benefit to that. Oh my gosh.
Well, you always say like your message, and I love that, because it's kind of like I also, a girl told me, don't block your blessings. And I had to learn that, like, okay, this isn't like, I'm not picking the timing here. It's just happening.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. I read a meme the other day, which is where I get all my important news, that was like, you can manifest and pray for something all you want, but if you're not in a state where you are the person that is ready for that gift that you asked for, whatever it is, then it's not gonna work out for you. So it sounds like you were ready. And also with divorce, I think you are ready well before you sign the paper. Like we talked about, you were probably ready years before, or like getting to that point. It's a slow process.
It's a slow process. And then the realization of it for your brain to catch up to like where your body is and like what's happening in real life. I think you're right. It does take a while. But yeah, there was a part of me. Listen, I couldn't say, I called it the D word. I'd be like, we're thinking about separating. Like I couldn't even say divorced for the longest time. And then slowly, like my brain caught up and was like, this is reality. Because being from Oklahoma, like I don't have a lot of friends that are divorced. I don't think I have one my age. Maybe I could think of one, actually, two. I just thought of two. And it's like, it shocks friends and family, and it's not super common. So I felt like I was really doing something wrong for the longest time, even though I knew I was doing what was right for me. So it was this like big push and pull that it was hard.
Totally. I see that actually at my kids' schools, because in preschool, kindergarten, first grade, most of the parents are still together. But then when you start getting to like third, fourth, fifth grade, there you see more kids with parents who have two households. And my kids are usually the only one in their class who have two houses. So it's an interesting place to be in. And it definitely makes me feel guilty sometimes, but they're going to be stronger for it, or not, but they'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out either way, which if figuring it out will make them stronger. Is this boy that you're dating, does he have kids, or do you care if you date somebody with kids or without kids, or you're indifferent?
I would prefer them to have kids, just because I feel like if when like it's just so hard to put somebody in a position to be ready for kids if they haven't experienced it themselves, I think. But that could just be me projecting a little bit. But yeah, he does. He has a son.
I would say, like, I feel like I just went through 3 phases of life really quickly, of like not having kids, pregnant, to having kids, and like didn't really see it coming. I think you're right. Like going through this has shocked both Harrison and I. So I do think you're right. Like there's something to you. And it was even on his ick list, like bad with kids, which is why I thought maybe he did have kids. But like, I think that would be hard to throw somebody into the fire and be like, here's a 4 and a 6-year-old, like be good with them. Unless they had like a niece or a nephew or something, I think that could cause like a divide.
I actually think if you have a niece and a nephew, it makes it worse, because it's a rude awakening when you realize that it's just so different to be with the child all the time, like 24/7. And then there's like what I went through this morning before to get them out the door to school. you got to really love them in order to make that work. But I do think they're wonderful. There are adults who are like, oh, my stepdad raised me. He never had any kids. He's the most wonderful person in the world. It happens. There are people made for it. I think they're just harder to come by.
I totally agree with that. Okay, so I was listening to Kristen Cavallari's podcast the other day, and she's dating Mark, who doesn't have kids.
Yes. Oh, everybody knows Mark.
Yeah, I mean,
of
we all know
course.
Mark, right? Of course. And she was saying how, like, as being a mom, she was explaining to him she has to put herself first, because if she doesn't put herself first and like take care of her mental health and her well-being, then she can't show up and be the best mom. And then like every other area of herself fails. Do you feel that to be true with you? And then do you feel like your boyfriend gets that more because he has kids?
Yes. I mean, it is so true. And that's one of the biggest things I've had to get over, I think, is the guilt of putting myself first, because sometimes that means I can't be with them and I only have them 50% of the time. So it's like, it makes it twice as worse. But if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not getting good sleep, then I just cannot show up for them. The putting your oxygen mask on first, as cheesy as it sounds, it's so true. It is so true
that everyone took that airplane etiquette thing and made it a great meme. You really do have to put your oxygen mask on first.
You really do. And I can't wait to keep listening to your podcast and hear about how you're putting your oxygen mask on first. I feel like everything in our body is wired to only care about this little helpless being. Human babies are so ill-equipped to be born. They're like every other animal, like a giraffe just like pops out and starts running around. Ours like can barely breathe on their own. But we're supposed to take care of ourselves.
I know. Like there should be a fourth. I don't want to carry it for 12 months, but like you are right. We should develop it a little more so they can at least come out and like see.
I actually had that debate. I think I remember on my Instagram where I was like, would you have rather kept your baby in your belly for that fourth trimester or had them out? And I would have 100% opted to keep them because I didn't have a sick pregnancy. So, and I had babies that just did not fucking sleep at all. So that was...
But did you feel okay?
Yeah, but
like, no, I know you said you weren't sick, but like even having like the basketball, like you were good.
I was good. And I remember just feeling like I was a walking miracle. Like I was like, I feel like everybody should be opening doors for me. And I'm like a gift from God right now to the world. I'm helping to procreate for this world. Like, what are you doing?
Right. What did you do today? Like I made eyelashes. Like you didn't do anything.
Exactly. Exactly. So I enjoyed that part of it. But you're going to love it. I want to just pivot because I know I have some listeners who are fans of yours from both of your other podcasts. And I just want to hear kind of the origin story of how did you get into podcasting?
So during COVID, I was living out in Orange County, California, and I was like working at a marketing firm. And I liked it, right? Like that was always what I was going to do, was just like the normal job rotation. But I was always pretty ambitious. But during COVID, I was like, man, if you really only live once, like this one's actually not for me. So I quit my job and I started going home to Oklahoma because Oklahoma was a lot more opened up than California was. And I had dyed the bottom part of I had like really long blonde hair, but I had dyed the bottom part of my hair like royal blue at the time. And I have a pretty traditional mother. And so when I got home to Oklahoma, I like filmed me showing her the hair. She like freaked out. And I had heard of this new app, TikTok, right? And most people were on it by this point, but I was like, whatever, let me just upload this video. And that video went viral. And I was like, man, kind of like making content started to appeal to me. And I don't even know why I uploaded that video. Like I wasn't really even thinking of it to do anything, right? I just kind of put it out there in the world. So one thing led to another, and I got into content, not in a way of like, the get ready with me videos weren't my thing. Do you know what I mean? I loved the idea.
Same. Yeah.
I loved it. Clearly no one got ready. I loved the idea of like,
don't get ready.
Let's get unready. I loved the idea of like content and media. And so I became really attracted to that. So one thing led to another, and I sent a pitch into Barstool. And so my mom and I both got hired at Barstool, and I was there for 2 years. And while I was there, Wait,
your mom got hired at Barstool? How did I miss this in my research?
My mom was hired with me at Barstool because she was who I made all my videos of when I lived in Oklahoma. I didn't live in Oklahoma. I would go home to Oklahoma. And she was like she's just like your sweet Southern mom. And people would comment, like, a lot of people that had like lost their moms, you know, they'd be like, she reminds me of my
Aw.
mom. And she just had this very sweet, but raw, you know,
Authentic. Yeah, people
yeah,
love
she was
that.
this like adorable Southern mom. So she went back and forth to New York for a while, still lived in Oklahoma. My dad's not a New York guy. He's like, really love living in Oklahoma. So my parents would go back and forth, and she would come in the office. And we had a podcast at the beginning, her and I. But then whenever Mean Girls started, I kept doing stuff with her, but we weren't doing the podcast as much. And so, anyways, one thing led to another. Mean Girl took off. And then we left Barstool about a year ago. And then I was looking at a lot of different networks. We were shopping the pod around. And I was like, you know, I'm
Mhm.
really,
Was this a friend of yours? Like, how did you? Because I know you co-host Mean
yeah.
Girls.
So I co-host Mean Girl with Jordan Woodruff, and she's the best ever. We were paired together at Barstool because we got
got
like in
it.
this like fight with Dave, and then it was like, okay, he was
I would've
calling us
liked to
Mean
see that.
Girls. And so then we started, like, it was like a very organic way, like like a lot of Barstool things, like so organic. So then we started the Mean Girl
Yeah.
podcast, and that was like, we have a blast doing it. It's also like unfiltered, just like girl chat. And then, yeah, when we left, I was like, I'm really interested in the business side of podcasting. So started Just Media, and now one thing led to another, and here I am.
I love that. And you're in Austin, right? Which is such a good place to have a media company, I think, because I feel like there's so many podcasts based in
There
Austin.
are. Whenever I got pregnant, I wanted to leave New York because I think New York is the best city in the world unless you're staying inside 24/7 because you're sick. And then like raising a kid in New
Oh.
York, like it's very foreign to me just being from the South. So we went to Nashville, Miami, Austin, and Orange County, and just like stayed in all of those for like a week and a half, and just decided Austin, career-wise, friend-wise, like it just checked all the boxes.
That's so cool. Where did your boyfriend live when you met him in New York?
He was between New York and LA, but lived in LA.
Oh, okay. So you guys got together and you were like, let's move together. So you learned about each other in a short period of time. And most of that time you've been pregnant.
Correct. So I'm like, if you
Which is, yeah, you're at a disadvantage. That's actually not fair. You're like, I'm actually way more chill than this usually.
I feel like I'm swimming uphill because I'm like, you know, you got pregnancy face. Like, I'm like, you got me for 2 months as myself. And he's liked me the
Yeah.
other 9 months a lot. And so I'm like, listen, I'm
Wow. He's in for a
that's what I
treat.
sound like. I'm only going to get better from here. Like, God, you still like me? And he's like, I love you. And I'm like, okay, because I'm down
Aw.
bad.
Find yourself an Apple Watch guy. I think that's like pretty much the lesson to be learned here.
It's an Apple Watch guy. He loves that darn thing.
Okay, so we left off with you started Mean Girls podcast, and you still do that remotely, or you fly to New York to record that one?
No, so that's remotely. So I'm in the Just Alex set right now. And then on the other wall, I have the Mean
Mhm.
Girls set, and I do them both out of Austin. And it's better when it's like you and I right now, though. Like everyone has the mic set up. Like I think that's the way to do remote podcasting. And if you have 2 studios, then I think it can look really nice. So yeah, we do it remote.
Oh, wow. I've never really considered that to be an option because I always like to vibe with people in person, but it is like we are still vibing. You don't need to be in person. Do you think you need to be in person when you interview?
No, I used to totally think you needed to be in person, but like, yeah, I don't know your full outfit. Like I don't know your height. Like there's
Yeah.
like those things like you kind of miss out on, but I think you get, I don't know, 75% of the experience through Zoom. What do you think? This or yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it depends. I think it's easier if you've done in person with the person like you have done with Mean Girls. Like, you know her, you kind of can like pick up on her facial expressions because you've seen them before, that sort of thing. So I think maybe it's something that you can graduate to, and it can be 100%.
I would agree with that. I think you can graduate to it. But yeah, like if you and I were doing this every week, but we had never met in person, I wouldn't know like your cues as well. Yeah, it's a very good point. Yes.
Yes. Totally. And then how did you start the Just Alex podcast? And is Harrison going to be like a regular guest, or are you guys going to start Is he going to co-host?
Well, I don't know if he'll ever co-host it. I started it because when I found out I was pregnant, I, obviously knew before everyone else knew. And so it honestly came down to a really good way to split advertisers. Like if we're being completely honest, it was like a monetary decision. Because we experiment, like having the network, right? You're looking at every part of the podcast. So for advertisers, having one where it's like pregnancy, relationship, family based versus the other one's like girl chat, it's a really good, there was no overlap. So, and I was like, I can do two. So and it's been working out great. So that's kind of why it started. Will Harrison be the co-host? Maybe if I keep asking, I don't know. To be determined.
I think he has a really good microphone voice and presence, and your banter I think is really great. Although I was totally on your side with that refrigerator thing with he's like, when he told his dad that you rolled your eyes, I was like, no,
you don't get to tell your dad that. He still doesn't get it. Some people in the comments were like, bro, you can't do that.
You handled that well though.
I handled it well. Is that what you said?
You handled it really well. Now I feel like I need to explain what it was. So she was kind of having like a little fit because he was messing up the kitchen and she had a friend coming. And then his dad comes down and he's like, Dad, she doesn't want anybody to make a mess. She's having a fit. Oh, and she's rolling her eyes at me now. And now that makes you look bad in front of his dad.
He chalked it up to like open communication with his family. And I was like, in what world? Like, you didn't have my back at all. You threw me under the bus. And he still was like, no, I was just trying to level set with my dad that you didn't want to mess in the kitchen. And I was like, you just made another mess. You made me look like a bitch.
Yeah, I feel like I have been in that position a lot of times before. So I feel like I was personally, like I felt that. But also then you didn't have anybody mess up your kitchen. So maybe he was really just trying to, I think that's the difference between men and women. He's like, well, you didn't want anybody in the kitchen, yes or no? And he did help facilitate that.
That's honestly a really good point because his dad like did get the message and like did not make a mess. And my friend was like flying in town. Like, you get the house ready for that person to come over. And
yeah, some people don't, but it's important to you. And it would be important to me too.
Very important to me. And his dad really did, because Harrison did tell him, actually, he did literally eat his meal outside. And
in Austin, like 110-degree weather.
Sweating. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I feel terrible. But hey, the kitchen was clean. That's a good point.
Yeah, so he did have your back. So I guess we need to look at the big picture sometimes. Okay, I'm just going to ask you like a few hot takes. Okay, what is your biggest ick in a relationship?
My biggest ick. I mean, I really I'm tempted to take, I'm going to have to take it because it's a massive thing for me. Rude to waitstaff or rude to friends and no, like, I call it court awareness of what's like going on around you. That stuff just can't get over that.
Right. Okay. What's your biggest social media ick? Like when you see somebody do and it makes you cringe.
Okay, come on, Alex. Well, so my co-host Jordan introduced me to this one, and listen, it didn't bother me before, but people collabing on just like random nothing events, like couples collabing.
Oh, like here we had a picnic at the beach, and I'm collabing with my boyfriend.
Yeah, like
or
there's
something?
not a lot that drives me crazy on social media, but that one that she pointed it out, I am noticing it, and it is driving me a bit crazy.
You know what kind of drives me crazy? You just brought this up in my mind, which I'm just going to take a shot in the dark. I hope that you don't do this because it's going to be embarrassing for me. But like, I hate when people put in their bio their husband's Instagram account or their boyfriend's Instagram account, because it's like, all right, no one's trying to steal your fucking husband. Like, calm down.
That's a great one. I do not do that. I would rather like eat this sweatshirt than do that. That's an excellent one. And it's like, who are you letting know?
Yeah, and why? What is the purpose of this? Is this part of your identity? It's like the person whose identity is their watch. Like your identity is your husband. A lot of wags do that, which is sad because it's like, do you think that that's why people would be interested in you? Because you're the wife of number 49 or whatever.
Exactly. And it's like, it typically what happens is we can tell within the first 9 posts if you're married or not. And And so we're good. We got it.
Yeah. You don't need to tell us in your bio. That's so funny. Okay. And then one more. What are you looking forward to most about parenting, and what are you most fearful of?
What I'm looking forward to is, besides like the challenge of raising the baby, is parent friends. Because Harrison and I both have a lot of non-parent friends. And so our thing now is like, the only way to get the parent friends is by becoming a parent. And so it's like we're checking that box. So I'm excited about parenting friends. And then what was the second part?
What's your biggest fear? And it can have to do with labor, delivery, raising baby.
My biggest current fear is this 2-week postpartum. Like, if you tear, people are telling me like you might not be able to walk. That's very unknown for me, and I'm scared of that.
Yeah. You're going to be okay. Don't worry. They give you good drugs, and yeah, you're going to be fine. You know what helped me? I was always like, I thought of like the dumbest people in the world, and I'm like, they have a baby, or I'm like, I think about the thousands of people, the thousands and gazillions of people who came before us who were able to like have and raise kids. Like, I got to be better equipped than most of those people.
No, it's so true. One of the doctors told me that. She's like, you would be surprised who has a baby. And I'm like, okay, that makes me feel better. And I think if I just like scare myself so much, then it will be what I'm expecting worse than what's going to actually happen.
Yeah. No, it's the best. And it's so true. That's funny that you're already aware of the parent friend thing, because that was something that was such a pleasant surprise for me. I had no idea. And now I'd say 75% of my very best friends are people that I met through my kids. So it's so nice.
I think like naturally that's what would happen, because they become your whole life. So I'm excited for those friendships.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I don't have a lot of seats left at my table, right? Like I got my people, but I'm like, I do have some, and those people are going to be parent friends.
Yeah, and honestly, some people are going to get up and leave your table because they're going to be like, this isn't for me right now.
I was that person. I was like, oh, you guys have kids.
Yeah. Not everybody wants to stick around for it. And it's true. You do kind of like trauma bond with the other moms, and like not trauma bond, but like nobody else cares about like a funny kid video the way like another mom
totally.
does.
Or like, what are you?
There's just a lot to
What
bond
are you
over.
feeding? It doesn't matter to a single friend with no kids. She's like, I don't fucking care what you're feeding your kid, but another mom does.
Totally.
You're so right.
Okay, well, I'm so excited to continue to follow you, and especially after you have this baby, it's going to be so interesting to see like how you grow as a mother. And everybody can find you on your Mean Girls podcast, and then on Just Alex, anywhere you find your podcast.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, and then also, where can we find you on Instagram and TikTok?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Just Alex Bennett. The just is actually part of it. People are thinking of saying like at Alex Bennett, at JUST Alex Bennett. And I'll see you guys there.
Okay, amazing. Yay. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank you for having me.